Hey there! In this video, we're going to optimize a real cold email. The lessons here are going to help you write better emails faster. I'm Will Allred, and I'm one of the co-founders at Lavender. It's the only sales email assistant that helps you write better emails faster. So let's jump into this email. We all know cold email is critical to sales. It's the most reliable, ROI positive method for growing revenue. Being able to write a good cold email is what separates good sellers and bad sellers. So instead of just talking about an email, I'm going to show you a live example. And on my screen here, you can see I've got a cold email from a sales rep at an e-signature company. With this email, I'm going to cover what I like, what I don't like. Heads up, we're going to talk a lot about mobile optimization, and I've got a great tool you can use for this. And last, as we edit this email, I'm going to provide a framework that you can easily use to write compelling cold emails that will get positive replies. So let's give this email a read. Hey, George, I have a product relevant to your work on the sales team. We helped case study save 10 plus hours a week and increase revenue by 50%. They were wasting hours. I would tediously create Microsoft Word docs, then manually transfer customer data from Salesforce CRM into the document, is what their CEO said. When is good for a call? Thanks, Will. Now, let's discuss what I like. It's short. The email is only about 50 words, which is optimal for getting a response. The signature line is awesome. You left a voicemail. I love that you're calling that out up front. And the fact that you're using multiple channels to get in touch with somebody is going to boost the chance that you get a response. The social proof. So the CEO quote and the valuable stats are great when they're used well, and we're going to improve how we use them here. And then lastly, the white space. So formatting is a bit of an issue here, but the question and the reason for reaching out is visually separated down here at the bottom, and I love that. This provides a good base to get started from, but there's a lot of room to improve. So let's start with the obvious, which is mobile formatting. This is a cold email. That initial open, that initial impression is 8 times more likely to happen via a mobile phone. And so while this email is short, 50 words, it's not optimized for a phone. So let's take a look. I'll show you. I'm going to pull it up on a mobile preview here, and you can see immediately those 50 words quickly turn into a big wall of text. So first things first, and honestly, this is just to help me visually separate all of this. Let's pull that quote separate. There we go. Okay. So now this is going to make your email feel a lot lighter to the other person on the other side, and it's going to improve your chances that someone's actually going to read it. So that short note just went from a cumbersome wall of text to a much more likely read. And the big reason here is it's still within one scroll on the phone. You don't have to like scroll down to the bottom or anything. We didn't make it extremely long, but we visually lightened it up by creating some space. So let's take this email from the top. The initial line sets a assumptive tone, and it sets it for the entire email. As a buyer, I can tell you, nothing says I don't need it like a sales rep telling me I need it. Your job as a seller is to build a relationship, identify problems, and provide a solution. The way this email starts, it flips that, and it sets a bad tone, leaves a bad taste in my mouth as I read it by assuming what I need. So we're going to go ahead and cut this first sentence. Actually, before we do that, let's talk about the flow. An email should flow from top to bottom. Each sentence should logically connect to the next. The flow of this email is just a little off. The stats, the 10 hours, the 50% revenue, they loosely tie to some kind of relevant product, and the quote is filled with processes that may or may not be relevant to the product being sold. And then the CEO gets credit, but I'm not sure why that comes after the quote. It's a missed opportunity to paint the perception of the quote. And so, lastly, the transition from the question from the CEO quote into when's good for a call, this is probably the most jarring. Saying this out loud to someone would be awkward. Each sentence should drive you to read the next, and they should tie together. And the more I look at this email, the more I realize there's one huge piece missing from the flow. It's the context. It's what this product does. It's never really explicitly stated. We've got e-signature company in the header, but if I've never heard of that particular e-signature company, which is how that would look in a live email, it wouldn't have any context. And so I'm not saying you have to provide a product description. In fact, I think a smart question can actually help you land this without getting into what you do. So let's rewrite this. And to do so, we'll use my framework for cold email writing. This is how I think about restructuring and rewriting emails. So here's how it flows. First things first, you want to show them that you know them. Now, this isn't, I saw you like kayaking. That's not true relevance, right? You need it to be personalized to their daily life and their work, the problems that they have. Second, create a pull into the conversation with an easy to answer question. This should create curiosity about what you do. And third, provide credibility for why you asked the question. Case studies, relevant logos. The CEO quote actually plays really well here. And then last, finish it up by rewording the initial question to drive a response. That's it. It's not about trying to close the deal in this email. It's about engaging them into a dialogue. You want to get a reply. You're not trying to get a signed contract in the first email. So let's talk about the flow again, the missing context. I think we can give this email context from the start. We'll start this email with a call to conversation, maybe a question that sets up the context and makes it easy to reply. So we can finally get rid of this sentence. Let's go with, hey, George, what are you using for e-signatures? Okay, so now you frame the conversation on e-signatures. People get what e-signatures are. They've likely used one. And if they don't have one, they probably need one. They do save you time, and they probably do make you money in the long run. So let's provide some relevancy to this. Let's provide some relevancy to the question. And their users use Salesforce. The secret here is actually in the quote. And so I think that's an interesting differentiator that we can call out. So let's keep this front sentence after the question very simple, which is, let's say something like Salesforce users like case study love the fact that we reduce their manual work. It's social proof, but it doesn't make you think too hard, right? So now we've got an opportunity to lean into that social proof. Let's actually lead with that CEO credibility. So let's say, as their CEO put it, and then let's bring this quote up to the top here. And let's also give this quote some better context. So how about before, we'll do company. And that actually sets the context for reading the quote, right? So it sets the stage of before the CEO had this company, they had this problem that relates back to the fact that they use Salesforce. So it all ties back together and it makes for a better flow. So now that there's context and there's some social proof, let's attach the facts, which are the 10 plus hours and the 50% of their revenue. And the stats without context are fairly worthless. You're not going to remember them as just floating numbers within an email. The revision needs to give them something to stick to. So let's do, let's give them something like this. They were wasting time and money. And then we'll put the stats 10 plus hours in parentheses here. And this is what I mean by giving it something to stick to. So we don't need this anymore. We don't need this anymore. Now, last, let's finish with another question. Instead of try something different. Try, is this interesting to you? And that's going to be a more compelling reason to have a conversation. This actually creates a sandwich that you have to reply to, right? What are you using for e-signatures? Is this something that's interesting to you? What do you think of this? I've made a couple revisions here, and maybe we into it, talk soon. To encourage dialogue some more. If you've got any feedback, send me a note. DM me on LinkedIn, Twitter. You can also reach me at will.allred@trylavender.com. I look forward to seeing your feedback and appreciate you sticking along.